Good morning. Thank you all so much for having me as your Ohigan speaker, and I'll give more extended thanks later. But just a brief word about chanting. So I think that our Shin Buddhist chanting is very, very beautiful, something I really enjoy doing. But I often like to give just a very brief comment about our chanting. So we have both chanting in Japanese and English, but most places still do traditional Japanese chanting. And some people question, why do we chant this old Japanese? So just a brief explanation of that is, the Japanese is so old that we chant that even the Japanese can't understand it. So why are we doing this chanting where we can't even understand it? Well, the heart of our tradition, the heart of Shin Buddhism, of course, is the realization of Amida's great compassion. And the experience of Amida's great compassion comes to us from deep, deep within, which is the power of a oneness beyond words. The power of oneness beyond words. So, in essence, when we do the chanting, the real meaning of every syllable that we chant is to feel, is to experience, is to be immersed in the deep flow of the power of this oneness beyond words. And for that reason, the meaning is not so important. What really matters is to get a feel for this power of oneness beyond words. So Buddhism is fundamentally a body practice. We do sometimes just quiet meditation. We do chanting. We do bowing. We do offering incense. This is the heart of our path, to feel it, to experience. So for us, chanting is a powerful, powerful experience of this oneness. Even when we just put our hands together in gassho, and we go to that deep, quiet place within, we have a sense of peace. We have a sense of deep connection with family, with friends, with those who have gone before us, like grandparents, that we forget about when we're so busy in our daily lives. But the reason we come to service, the reason we go to hear Dharma messages, is to reconnect with the source, the power of oneness beyond words, deep within. So even before we begin the chanting, I just want us to put our hands together in gassho. Put your hands together in gassho. Okay? And just completely relax. Relax your shoulders. Relax your minds. And we become aware of thoughts that come into our minds. It's fine, thoughts come in, but just let them go. And just go to that deep, deep place of silence within, of the power, of the flow, of oneness within. Deep within your hearts, deep within each of you, there's a source of the power of a oneness beyond words, the power of great compassion. I just want you to feel it, the deep sense of peace and of calmness deep within. And bow. And bow. that same sense of peace and of calm and of oneness, this is expressed in every syllable. And when you chant, even though it's the same chant as everybody else, your voice is unique. The timbre of your voice, each of you is unique. And this is a profound meaning, because one of the things that we struggle with all our lives is to find our voice in society, to find our voices in family. It's deeply an expression of who we are. So even when we chant Namo Amida Butsu, which is the same 6 syllables for everyone, each person has a unique way of chanting. But when we come together for service, we all blend and chant as one voice. And the beauty of our chanting together is that our individual unique voice is not erased. Why it's so much more beautiful when we chant together is because the uniqueness of each of our voices blends and comes together as one voice without erasing our individual contribution. This is our way, how to find our way in life, to contribute in life. The power of oneness coming together with other people and other creatures, not by erasing my individuality, but by finding how my unique voice becomes one with the voices and lives of all other people and all other creatures. So chanting is such a beautiful expression of this oneness. So I hope that you can throw your whole being into the experience of chanting and receive the amazing power of this profound oneness each and every time. Although I've chanted hundreds of times, thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, each time it's a new experience for me, because the people that I'm chanting with, oftentimes I'm meeting new people, and even when it's the same people, it's a new experience every single time. Thank you very much. Good morning once again. Thank you so much, Reverend Harada, for your generous introduction. Can't thank everyone, but just like to thank all of you for having me once again, and President Brian Hatano and President-elect Stuart Ito, who hosted me for dinner last night, which was wonderful. To Reverend Harada and Reverend Hamasaki and the other reverends and ministers' assistants. And of course, we can't forget the ladies who prepared wonderful refreshments. My favorite, ohagi with kinako. Especially Reverend Harada, who's been inviting me to a number of temples this year. I feel like he's my bodhisattva, inviting me to all different kinds of temples, and it's just wonderful. Many places I've been to many times before. I don't think I've spoken here in Sacramento before. Maybe I have, but I think this might be my first time speaking. It's wonderful. You have such a long tradition here, beautiful Hondo, and really, most importantly, the beautiful spirit of your Sangha. Many members who've been here for generations, but many people who are also newer to the tradition, and such a wonderful mix that you have in your Sangha here. So the heart of our tradition is the experience of this profound oneness, the deep flow of the oneness of reality, which is completely beyond words. But we get all caught up in our thoughts, in our emotions, and we forget. Like I work at the University of Oregon, which wonderful that I share this connection with Reverend Harada, where he went to college at the University of Oregon. And I've been there, hard to believe, 18 years. And one of the things about working at a university or college, it's a very beautiful setting. You have beautiful grounds, and up in the Pacific Northwest, lots of rain. Then in the spring, all the flowers come to life and all over campus. But I hardly notice, because I'm all caught up in the busyness of my mind and of the words that fill my mind. And I start to lose touch with my heart and who I am deep within, the deep flow of the oneness that comes to me beyond and even before words. So the heart of our tradition is to first be reminded that I'm just such a fool. I'm a foolish being, filled with attachments to all the things that I think are important, forgetting my deep connection with the power of reality itself, my deep connection with family, with my parents, with my grandparents, whether they're here physically or not, that continue to be there for me in my heart and deep in my being, and ultimately with everyone and everywhere that connect me with the whole universe, the power of the oneness of the universe. So it's constantly being reminded of my foolishness, returning to the heart of Amida Buddha, the heart of boundless compassion, the power of this oneness beyond words. But rather than just continuing to explain this, I think it's easier to understand through stories that we can tell and share. So, one of the places where I've had a wonderful opportunity to go speak several times, because we're in Oregon, I've spoken at the Buddhist temple in Portland, Oregon Buddhist Church, but even more often I've gone to Seattle Betsuing, the Shin Buddhist temple in Seattle. And when I go there, oftentimes family hosts us there, and Reverend Jeffries and his wife. And early on when I used to go there, I used to stay in their den. But the most recent trip I went up there, I stayed in one of their daughters' bedrooms because their daughters have grown up. Now they've moved away, they have their own lives. So last time I went to speak there, I stayed in one of the daughters' rooms. And I got up in the morning, and it's an ensuite, so it has its own attached bathroom. And I was just in my underwear, and I got up, and I was getting ready to go to the bathroom. But there was a mirror standing against the wall next to the bathroom, full-length mirror. So I looked at myself in the mirror, and I hadn't seen myself that way, because in our home, we do have full-length mirrors, but we put them on the inside of our closet doors. So I see myself, but I don't usually see my whole, silhouette. So I hadn't seen myself quite like that for quite some time, and when I looked in the mirror, I thought, not bad. Then I proceeded to go into the bathroom, and the bathroom has a long countertop where the sink is. And then there's another big mirror, because it goes from the top of the countertop all the way to the ceiling. And when I looked at myself in the mirror in the bathroom, I didn't look quite the same. So I went back out into the bedroom, and I looked at the mirror again, and I realized it was an inexpensive mirror that was just standing against the wall. And because it was an inexpensive mirror, it was a little bit concave. And it made me look slimmer than I actually was. But it's such a good metaphor for the distortions of my own ego. Yeah. I like to think that I'm more fit and trim than I am. I like to think that I'm younger than I am. I like to think, as the years pass, I realize I have more gray hair now. But the photo that I sent to the temples doesn't quite have as much gray hair. But the more recent changes, it's not that I have more gray hair, it's that I have less hair altogether. Okay. So, these things are things that I don't like to face, but they're funny. But why are they funny? The reason they're funny is because I'm being illuminated by something that's like a mirror, which is Amida's great compassion, which is the mirror of reality itself. But you know, a mirror has no judgment. The mirror doesn't tell me, oh, you're not as young as you used to be. The mirror just shows me very, very gently, just as I am. And in the same way, Amida's great compassion illuminates us, embraces us, brings us home into this deep, deep heart of silence and peace and great compassion, and allows us to see us with more humor, with more gentleness, with greater compassion. This is the power of Amida's great compassion. Amida's not somewhere out there. Amida is deep, deep within our hearts, gently, gently illuminating us, not eliminating our attachments, not eliminating our blind passions, but completely embracing them, so that my very attachments, my very foolishness becomes a source of wisdom, illumination, and the power of great compassion. So Reverend Marata kindly mentioned my father, Taitetsu Unno, and my uncle, Tetsu Unno. And I know that especially my uncle has come, had a wonderful opportunity to come speak here many, many times. So I just want to share just some stories about my father. My father passed away in 2014 at the age of 85. And I had a wonderful life with my father, growing up as a child, and then of course I went off to college and had my own career. My parents have been living in Massachusetts, where my father taught at Smith College, for 35 years. And then they were retired. And in 2007, they came to be with us in Eugene, Oregon. And we built a home for them. My wife's not an architect, but she designed the house, and then we took it to a designer to finish off the blueprints. And I acted as the general contractor. So it was a year-long project to design the house, to build the house. They came out to see if they liked the house. They moved. Then we helped them manage the move. I hired the movers. We had to hire movers all the way from Boston because they had many Japanese things. So we hired a Japanese mover, kuroneko movers. So took care of a lot of details. We even brought them out for longer trips to see if they liked where we lived in Eugene, Oregon. It was a lot of work. But it was nothing compared to the huge move that they had to make after living for 35 years in Massachusetts, to make that decision to come be with us in Eugene, Oregon, where they were completely dependent on us. And I was so fortunate to have my father for 7 years, and now my mother, who's still healthy, to be with us. Those 7 years together with my father were the best 7 years of my life. And I think he felt the same way. I remember when I was a small child, and then growing up, and then going to high school. One day, after just last day of school, high school, my friends invited me to play softball. We were playing softball. I was playing shortstop. They put me in shortstop. That was a big mistake. And the opposing player, he hit the ball right to me. And my friend said, "Mark, rush the ball, rush the ball." And I didn't understand what they were saying. I waited until the ball just slowly rolled to me. And then I picked it up. They said, "Oh no, you're supposed to rush the ball and throw it to second base." And I shared this story with my father when I went home. I didn't think anything of it. They said, "Rush the ball." And my father said to me, "Oh, you know, that's my fault." He said, "That's my fault. Because I didn't play ball with you when you were a child. So you didn't understand that you're supposed to rush the ball and pick it up and throw it to second base to get the runner out. And I didn't think anything of it when he told me that story. But now that he's gone, there's all these stories that I haven't thought about for many, many years. And I realized it was my father. My mother said she got all excited about the house. She liked it because we custom designed the house. But my mother said, as soon as we went back to Massachusetts, your father said, we're going to move now. And he said it with such strong conviction. And I realized, for my father to complete his journey, he needed to complete his journey with his son. And it was very, very moving. And this was not an easy thing for my father. So, I grew up and we lived in most places where there were no Buddhist temples. My father didn't force me to study Buddhism. It was my own decision. I think he was very happy. Not only did I become a professor of Buddhism just like him, but I also became ordained. And my grandmother was very happy. My grandfather had passed away. I think he would have been happy. But it was my own choice. But one thing that my father and I didn't anticipate is as I became my own person as a scholar and as a minister, we started to conflict. Because now for the first time, I had always attended his talks, and when he came out, he would say, Mark, you have something to add. It was like we were team players. But once I started to come into my own, he had to fight me. Because in part, I became his competitor. It was a necessary process. Nobody's fault. And in our own little Unno world, it was an epic battle. Okay? But in Buddhism, unlike baseball, unlike basketball, okay, you don't have winner and loser. In Buddhism, everyone wins or no one wins. This is the rule. Everyone wins or no one wins. This is Amida Buddha's great compassion. Everyone wins or no one wins. Once we start to have this conflict, then I said to my father, Dad, we're going to have to work through this because we could build you a house. We could introduce you to activities and friends. But unless we get along, it's not going to work. And his initial response was, I didn't talk with my dad. Typical men, right? But also traditional Japanese men. They didn't talk to each other. They didn't have heart-to-heart talks. But I said, Dad, you and Grandpa are not you and I. We're going to have to talk it through. And it was not easy. I was very, very fortunate that he was willing to undertake that journey with his son. I know how hard it was for him. But he was willing to do it. The bond between parent and child is the closest bond. There's so much love. But because it's so close, it's also one of the most difficult. We all just want the easy parts, the good parts. We don't want to face the hard part. That's all relationships. Colleagues, friends, husbands, wives. But the real reward comes when we face the hard part. And I was so lucky my father faced the hard part. After they moved, we had a previous commitment to go speak at Palo Alto Buddhist Temple. We drove all the way down. And on the drive back, we stopped for gasoline and for rest stop at a gas station right near Mount Shasta. It's a beautiful summer day. It was starting to get dark. It was dusk, but you could still see the blue sky. And I could see the faint outline of the moon. My father was outside, I was outside. I said, look, Dad, there's the moon. And when he looked up at the moon, he had this big smile on his face. And in that moment, I wanted to take a photo, but I didn't have a camera. But I took the camera of my heart. And I captured that moment, and it's still in my heart. Because by that time, my father was in his late 70s. He was starting to slow down physically. And I had this thought, how many more times am I going to get to see that smile? My father had 2 heart attacks and a stroke. His heart was weakening. He started to walk more slowly, start to use a walker, start to forget things. Then right towards the end, he went to hospital, lost consciousness. And I asked the ER doctor, I said, is he going to wake up? And the doctor said, well, he might not, we just don't know. And my mom said, Mark, I think we lost her. I said, what? We'll see. He woke up the next morning, he was fine. But we all knew the end was near. And I started to get emotional. I said, Dad, thanks for everything. And he said in Japanese, sort of kochiyo. He said, no, it's me. I want to thank you. We both became very emotional. Then after a while, they had him propped up a little bit in the hospital bed. He crossed his hands and he leaned forward a little bit. And he said in Japanese, he said, "Osewa ni narimashita." And I started cracking up. In English, that roughly means, sorry for causing so much trouble. Thank you for everything. I thought, what is he doing? I said, Dad, don't be so formal. He said, well, they might ask, what were his last words? My father was all excited. This was his last big stage. He didn't have to share it with his son. He had it all to himself. And he had many memorial services, all free, from Honolulu to Los Angeles to New York City. He even gave me the perfect joke to tell at every service. Then, a week later, he was gone. But the moment that he took his last breath, he leapt completely into my heart. And he never left. Never left. So fortunate to have this journey with my father. Not everyone's so fortunate. Maybe for circumstances out of our control, you're not able to be there physically together or be nearby. Or some people experience difficulties with their parents, like I had difficulties with my father. But in this life, are not able to bring it to closure, to have that heart-to-heart connection. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because when we return deep within into the heart of compassion, great compassion, the power of oneness beyond words, that connection is still there. No parent's perfect. No child's perfect. But there's no parent that doesn't love their child more than anything else in the universe. And there's no child that loves their parent more than anything else in the universe. Maybe the parent wasn't always the most skillful in showing their love. Maybe the child wasn't always able to express their appreciation. Outwardly, it doesn't always work out perfectly. Most of the time, it's not perfect. But that desire is there. Not just to complete and bring closure to our relationships with our parents, with children, but with all family, with colleagues, with friends. We're not able to do it outwardly, but we have that desire because we all come from the heart of the oneness of the universe. And when we chant together, when we chant Nam Myoho Dabutsu together, that's an affirmation of my foolishness, enveloped, embraced, and dissolved into the great heart of the oneness of reality, of boundless compassion. then we know who we are because we're coming home to our hearts. Then we know who we are because we're being held by the gentle embrace of the heart of great compassion. That's why we come to the Buddhist church. That's why we come to Sangha. That's why we listen to the minister. Because we want to come home to our hearts. Because we want to find our true voice, which is not as a man or a woman, a parent or a child, but is to receive the voiceless voice of the power of great compassion coming home to us. And for generations, not just the 3 or 4 generations sustaining Sacramento Buddhist Church, but the many generations going back 750 years to Japan, 2,500 years, the history of Buddhism, millions of years from the birth of the universe herself. Because ultimately, our true parent is the universe herself. And when we feel it in the chanting, in Namo Amida Butsu, then we realize with all my quirks, with my waistline not quite what it used to be, with my butt that no longer fits into boys' sizes, it all was meant to be. It's not out of place, even though it looks a little out of shape. It was all meant to be. We're all meant to be the people we become. Our great teacher Shinran Shonin says, the greater the ice, the greater the water, the greater the ice of blind passion, the greater the realization, the water of great compassion. Our blind passion isn't something to be illuminated. It's the very substance of great compassion. If only we would allow ourselves to realize we are continually illuminated by the warm waters of great compassion. For just this very brief time, how fortunate that I've been invited here to Sacramento Buddhist Church to be among you, to share this journey of oneness, to share this journey in the embrace of great compassion. Let's conclude by putting our hands in gassho. Moment of silence to realize we all belong, each of us, with our unique voices, receiving the power of great compassion coming home to deep within our hearts. Namo Amida. Namo. Thank you all so much. Thank you very much.